Welcome back to Formula Wombat, the channel by F1 fans, for F1 fans, from F1 fans that really don't know that much about F1, but we're taking you on the journey to learn with us.
Yeah, we basically like things that go fast and vroom.
And today we're going to be doing a quick recap of Australia and China because we had the pleasure of actually being present for the Australian GP, which was absolutely awesome. One of the best Melbourne Albert Park races to ever attend.
Yeah, that was insane weather. That was the days leading up to that were great. Like Saturday was boiling hot, but Sunday was miserable, but the race was peak. It was so good.
It was an excellent race. Oh, and if you are new to this channel, to explain how we happen to be doing this in what looks like a pub with a bunch of whiskey barrels, it is because we also run another channel, Flying Wombat TV, which is all about beer, banter, and bloody good times. But we'll talk more about that later. What we have right now is a quick recap of Australia and China. Then we're going to be moving on to our predictions for Japan, our top 3 podium places for the drivers and the constructors. We do need to talk about Yuki and Liam. That has to be discussed. All the changes that have happened with it, which has been done to death on YouTube already, but also what our prediction is going to be for Japan for both drivers with this massive shift in both of the teams. And then we're also going to talk about our F1 fantasy teams, what we've been impacted by with the last 2 races, and what our lineups look like now to get maximum points in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, where to start? There's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot. There is a lot. I suppose let's talk about...
That's why you're signing up to this, eh?
Exactly. Let's start with Australia.
Recap.
Let's start with Australia. It was an amazing race. So for anybody that hasn't watched it in depth, there was 6 cars that did not finish. There was a number of crashes. There was a crash before the race even started. Isaac Hadjar, opening lap, formation lap, managed to spin off.
And Doohan couldn't pull it together.
Doohan couldn't
do it. For 2 laps.
What was he doing?
What was he doing?
It
hurt to see. That did hurt to see.
Painful race for Australians to watch 2 hometown heroes just have their moments. And then we have to talk about obviously Oscar chasing down Lando after getting past Max towards the end of the race and then spinning off into the grass. But how good was that practice on Jeremy Clarkson's farm? That came in clutch.
The tractor clutch.
The tractor clutch.
Dude, that was such a big moment because we were at the hill with the Red Bull tent. But it was, I think it was further around the corner where he did it.
It was on one of the final corners. So we were at turn 8. I think it happened on turn 11 or turn 10.
Something like that. But that was insane. The crowd hyping him up.
Yeah.
Because it came up on DNF already on the scoreboard and he was like, not today.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
That was insane.
And I don't know how well it was captured on camera because obviously we're there, we weren't watching it, but the roar of the crowd could be heard around Albert Park as Oscar started pulling his way in reverse off the grass. And that was the clever thing. When you're in the grass, you need to pull your way out. You can't push your way out. Reversing was by far the smartest option. I think lesser drivers would have just tried to accelerate it and would have dug themselves a hole.
Lesser drivers would have just given up and not tried as well.
Yeah.
And he came back and scored points.
He came back.
His overtake was on Hamilton. That's where we were sitting, sitting around that hill. That was insane.
That was very cool. I saw that overtake. You missed it. I had a stall. If you ever go to a race, a GP in person, bring a little step stool. You can see over all the heads.
Next year the stool won't matter because we'll get grandstand tickets. That's the plan now. Grandstand tickets for race day.
Sponsored by F1?
Yeah. Definitely not.
Definitely
Sponsored by Flying Wombat.
Sponsored by Flying Wombat. No, that was very cool. And then
I think that was the biggest highlight.
I think that was the biggest highlight by far. I mean, Lewis had his moments. Leclerc was struggling as well. The water. So if you missed it, there was team radios where Leclerc was complaining to his team that I'm drenched in my seat. There's water. There's like so much water. And the team radio came back. Must be the water. Which obviously they meant his drink, but it does sound stupid.
It obviously didn't come over well.
No, it did not come over well. Let's add that to the words of wisdom.
No, but I think biggest surprise though is like Max didn't look dominant like he did in Brazil wet race as well. That's a pretty big surprise.
And I think that should have been the early sign telling us just how undrivable that car has become.
McLaren's, I mean, they still look as good as they were last year.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane that car is on that level.
But when you have a wet race and you have the wet specialist not pulling away, well, in fact, at one point there was, I think, close to a 20-second gap between the McLarens and Max,
insane.
which is just ludicrous. So clearly that Red Bull is a nightmare to drive if even Super Max can't close that gap. That is a massive issue.
It was just an interesting race as well because it wasn't raining for the whole race as well.
Yeah.
It came and went. And it came again.
Yeah.
And it screwed another 4 people over.
Oh,
Alonso got screwed by gravel, but still.
But then even like the Yuki, he was in P2 at one point. But then he was on the wrong side of the track when the safety car came out.
So many people should have planned better and gone Inters a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Like Max, Yuki, a couple, I think Gasly as well, a couple others.
And the Ferraris, I think the Ferraris stayed out. Another lap longer than they were what they should have, and then ended up getting caught out. There was
Max could have won that race. Like he would have been defending it right to the end, maybe been overtaken, but he could have won that race.
Could have
if he went for Inters a bit earlier, because I think he would have come out in front of Lando.
But I think you nailed it on the head. If anyone went Inters earlier, if anyone had the crystal ball,
But hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was
hindsight. Oscar wouldn't have been in the grass and been leading. So
I think it was Brundle. That said it, or was it Crofty over the radio and the commentator's box that all the technology in the world and Zach Brown still goes to the stretching out the hand out the back to see if there's drops.
That's the thing. It's like clouds cover different parts of the track. It's a big track.
It's a big track. It's a strange track. High speed, narrow track. But yeah, we digress.
Overall, what do you rate the race out of 10?
Oh, a high 9.
Yeah.
Like it was...
For the start of the season?
For the start, for opening race, and particularly Albert Park, which is traditionally not the most interesting, it's not the most interesting race in the world.
Not many overtakes.
Yeah, it's a tough track to actually have excitement. That race had it all. But now moving on to China.
China was interesting. China... I can't believe it still had more drama. So much more drama.
Yeah.
Even more drama than Australia.
Yeah.
Technically. Like, you can't gloss over Lawson's
I think we need to come to that in the end. I think
a little bit later.
What's worth mentioning, though, is that Lewis did win Ferrari's first ever sprint race.
That's insane.
And the celebration on team radio was so mute. It was just, yep, that's P1.
That's the Italian way.
No excitement at all.
I think that's because I don't know if they really celebrate it as like a proper race.
I think it deserves to be celebrated though. It's the first win.
I mean, he proved himself in the Ferrari within 2 races.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That is the crazy part. He pulled away comfortably.
And what's also insane is that Ferrari is faster when they have a broken wing. How dumb is that?
Well, I mean, it's a lighter car. I mean, faster in a straight line.
How did Leclerc get past Hamilton? That made no sense.
Yeah, that was a little bit wild.
But he did get DQ'd, so
that was unfortunate. And then obviously Lewis as well, also being taken out.
I still don't really understand that, to be honest.
Look, it's such a technicality. It's silly. It's at some point the rules need to be followed to the letter because otherwise they stop being rules. But I think there's an extent where F1 does become a little too much crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's just for something as little as that clearly was not providing a significant increase in performance. Does that really need to be a DQ? I don't know.
I feel like it should just be a loss of places, like maybe like a 10-second, 5-second penalty. Like I don't know. Like it probably wouldn't have changed that much in the end anyway.
The problem is I think there's been a lot of criticism on the FIA last year and the last couple of years of 5-second penalties, 10-second penalties just not making a difference in races.
Exactly, because they already have such a significant gap during the race. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
The other thing about that race was just bloody doing. He was doing things.
He was
doing the wrong things.
He was doing some naughty things. He got, what was it, 4 penalty points? Yeah, impressive. That K-Mag would be proud. Magnussen was a fan of shunting people.
We need our Aussie to do good, but...
Well, the problem is he's under such immense pressure to prove himself before losing his drive. He has to get his elbows out right now because if he doesn't, there may not be another race. This is the time where he needs to be ultra aggressive and prove that he needs to be there.
Yeah, but you know the surprising thing is Oscar's won a race within
That was spectacular, and that really does ramp up the fight for the championship, which is quite clearly, as it stands, going to be a fight inter-team. It's going to be between Lando and Oscar.
That's exciting.
By all face value. Very exciting, very nerve-wracking, and it's going to be a question
be a lot of drama.
Who has the ability to more consistently score more points. I think Oscar is Mr. Consistent between the two.
It's a turning point for Oscar because he got his first pole as well.
Yes.
It's very much a turning point. It's whether he can continue getting poles
So don't quote me on this, but I think of the 27 race starts between the two of them, he's had the pole, he's beaten Lando in qualifying position 3 times or something.
I think it's like
really
3
low.
or 4, it's something like
It's
that.
extremely low. He has not had a great start to his career in terms of out-qualifying his
He's beaten him
teammate.
a lot in the sprints, but full races, I think it's only like 4 or 5 or something.
No, but I mean,
now,
specifically qualifying positions though, he regularly does lose out to Lando.
But not by much. That's the thing. It's only by one place, and
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. It is the difference.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a world championship.
Yeah.
So
I think the last thing worth mentioning is how RB, V-Carb, just completely
masterclass
gave away their point positions.
Masterclass in bad strategy.
And immediately handed those points
to Haas.
Directly to Haas, their closest competitor.
Who thought after Australia, Haas would come back and gain like 15 points?
That was wild. That was absolutely wild.
They obviously they benefited hugely on the double DQ from Ferrari. Bumped up Ocon to 5th place, which is insane. I mean, it's just like Hulkenberg getting 6th and 7th.
But it's just like considering Ollie could not keep the car on the track for any of practice or qualifying. Like, how is it that he comes out and starts scoring points like that?
Well, the best overtake
in Australia, mind you, he couldn't keep it on the track in Australia.
Best overtake of that race was Ocon on was it Lawson? No, it would have been someone else. Would have been on Albon or something. We went off the track, went into the grass, and just managed to keep it on the road.
It was impressive. Insane. It was good. It was controlled aggression, which is what you want to see. It was an impressive race.
I'm pretty sure it was Albon. It was one of the drivers.
Yeah. But I now suppose we should move on to our predictions for Japan.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. Drivers. 3, 2, 1. I believe will be George, Oscar, Lando.
That's very safe.
Lando in first.
Very safe. Lando in first. George in third. I have Oscar, Max, and Lando. Oscar in first.
You think Max is gonna Oscar in first? Okay. You think Max is gonna split the McLarens?
Yes. I think it's gonna be wet. I think the forecast is predicting a potentially wet track, maybe not rain.
As is often the case in Suzuka. Yeah.
Who knows? I think Max may have it.
Interesting.
George may come in out of nowhere and just grab 3rd place. Like, that's typical George move.
Look, my prediction for George in 3rd right now is quite simply, he has been so out of the headlines, but has somehow been snagging podiums or close to podium. No, podiums. Two podiums back to back. And out of nowhere, like no real massive overtakes, no huge moments on track, not massive defense. He's just
clear mistakes as well.
Yeah, he's just in the right place at the right time. Then things happen, and George got 3rd.
You got to think he was 2nd for Japan, so he is qualifying very fast as well.
Yeah,
like he beat Lando, but Lando did have mistakes on that qualifying, that last lap, and so, but begs the question
for Japan. Oh, you mean Australia?
No, for China.
For China. Yeah, it's. I think George has been quietly consistent in keeping himself very close to the podium positions, and in a wet race, in a high-speed track like Suzuka, I think being consistent and keeping your car on rails, even if you're not the highest performer, will guarantee you a pretty decent chance at standing on that podium. And at the moment, I just don't think anybody can catch the McLarens. So as long as they have a half-decent qualifying, even in a wet race, I just don't think anyone's catching them right now. Even Max, as good as he is in the wet.
My hope is Lando qualifies like 5th or 4th. Because I just want Oscar to be ahead in the championship.
Yeah,
After.
I mean, I'm torn because I want, as an Aussie, I want Oscar up there.
Yeah.
But as someone who has Lando in my F1 fantasy team, I need the points.
Exactly. That's why I'm putting Oscar first because he's my top dog.
Yeah.
But I should also be putting George up there because I have him as well. But
Yeah. Well, I suppose before we talk about fantasy, constructors lineup, I think, well, obviously by
Very
my prediction,
similar.
McLaren in first, Mercedes in second, Ferrari in third.
I have Red Bull in third.
No, you're making a mistake, my friend. You are forgetting about the other driver. You need two drivers to make the magic happen.
There's going to be magic. There's going to be another double DQ by Ferrari. Imagine back to back.
That would be wild and absolutely cause detrimental damage to their chances for the championship.
They're already around 60 points behind McLaren.
Which is recoverable. It's a long season. It's a very, very long season, but it's never a good thing to have both your drivers out of the points, especially when they were doing so well.
They're tying with Williams. Teams.
It is wild. It is wild.
Like Williams is already beating their points last year almost.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Okay, we do need to talk about Yuki and Liam. And as a quick recap, if you're unaware, Yuki been trying to, get into that top Red Bull seat for many, many years now. I think he was with Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri, then now, it was not Toro Rosso. I think it was AlphaTauri when he started, and then obviously like V-Carb now. Been there for 4 or 5 years, never really gotten the call up to join that Red Bull seat. Liam comes out of nowhere last year, replaces Daniel for the last 6 races of the season, and then replaces Checo Perez with the top dog seat opening this year. And now after just 2 races, he's been replaced by Yuki. So Red Bull being
that is
ultra aggressive.
Ruthless.
Absolutely ruthless.
Pretty ruthless to save his career.
Look,
save his future.
And it needs, you need to, from Red Bull's perspective, you have to understand, obviously, they've got a driver that's in a car that was winning world championships not that long ago, and he is now pulling in qualifying P20. He's fighting at the very back of the grid, certainly worse than the average of Checo's performances in the same car. But 2 races is kind of insane.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to consider Australia like a fair race for every driver, to be honest, because it was chaos everywhere.
I think more than anything, it's the Shanghai performance that really...
it's that. Yeah. It's truly the P20 in sprint and then the P20 in the race. Like, you can't be doing that in a Red Bull. You
can't. But then that also speaks volumes to the car, though, because Liam is a good driver.
Yeah, he's
You
decent.
don't become a terrible driver overnight.
I don't think
you don't forget how to drive the way that his performance is showing.
I feel like he'll never be as good as Oscar is. But
I agree.
I think I feel like he's on the same level as Albon was when he was in Red Bull as well. I feel like similar, maybe slightly less.
Yeah,
it's hard to gauge because very different cars, very different era of cars.
I mean, and then vice versa. You got Yuki that has pulled out stellar performance. I mean, his points this season are not reflecting his results because realistically, he should have had potentially a podium finish in Australia or at the very least, very high
that
points.
Would have been lucky. No.
And then again in Shanghai. He was sitting in P7 and then the double pit stop strategy by RB was just insanity and gave away those points.
Yeah.
But realistically, he's pulled out massive performances.
He should be 10 plus points. He should be sitting around what Albon is, to be honest.
Yeah, he should be. He should be.
Albon's Albon's doing great. I don't think anyone saw him outperforming Carlos.
No, and that's another thing I guess that needs to be talked about. Probably not in this episode.
Another video.
But Carlos that was seen as like the messiah that was coming along to save Williams. And suddenly Albon decides, I'm going to learn how to drive.
He's like, he's the number one.
Yeah.
You don't actually know who Williams' number one is. It's a weird dynamic there.
I don't think they have a number one. I think Williams has taken an approach very similar to McLaren. I think they are treating their number one driver based on qualifying at each given race. I think that's the way that they're managing, which I think is the correct way to do it when you have 2 excellent drivers.
Pretty much, yeah. I feel like they're on... Yeah, you could always gauge Carlos is a bit better of a driver than Albon, but I think they're actually on very similar levels. Obviously, Albon looks great at the moment as well. He's in form.
And to be fair, Carlos, first 2 races in the car, takes time to adapt. Australia was tough. Shanghai, you do have to question why he didn't do better. But again, it's only his second race in that car.
Yeah.
But what I do want to talk about with Yuki and Liam is not about the drama and everything that's happened, because that story's been done to death. But what I do want to discuss is, where do we think they both finish in Suzuka?
Liam's definitely going to be better in the racing pools. I'm concerned he won't do better than Hadjar.
I agree. Liam now is in a position where
needs to do better than
must
Hadjar.
outperform Isaac for the remainder of this season,
Yeah.
or he will effectively destroy his career forever, and he'll never drive an F1 again.
Yeah.
But that's another topic altogether.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
between Liam and Yuki, I agree. I think Liam is probably going to pull a result around finishing 14th.
He'll get into Q2. So
He'll get into Q2, I think. I think he'll finish around 14th in the race.
I think both Hadjar and him will get into Q2. Don't know about Q3. Q3 is a question mark. They've been looking very good. I think it's whether they help each other, whether one of them helps the other to get into Q3, because that's what happened in China.
Yeah.
With Yuki.
Do you want to hear my prediction for Yuki?
What?
I think he either comes in race
Yeah.
15th or DNF.
No, not his own
And I hate to say it because I love Yuki. He is such a great personality. He's such an entertaining driver. Such an awesome just personality in the sport.
No.
But I do think that as undrivable as that Red Bull is, there is a very high chance that in a wet race, in a high-speed, dangerous race like Suzuka, he bins it off the track at some point.
I want him to make it to Q3 in the Red Bull in his first race. It would prove a point.
Race.
Like Q3, if he's in Q3 in the race, like he's in the top 10, in the quali, he should be able to maintain that position.
Yeah, I think even if he does that, he'll bin it.
I feel like he'll be top 10.
I don't know
what position.
You got to remember, he's never done a race in that car.
He's been training his whole life for it. I've got
never
Yuki
done a race in
high
that
on
car.
my early predictions, so I need him to do better.
Oh, you do. You put a lot of...
I'm putting faith in my Japanese nuke, man. I gotta believe in the boy now. He's in the Red Bull seat. I predicted this from the start.
Yeah, and I guess speaking to our predictions in the first video we released on this channel, the first audio, if you're listening to this on podcast.
Yeah.
I had Yuki in 16th. Where did you have Yuki?
11th or so.
God, that was a tall order. That was a very tall order.
We have Lawson in 7th.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's
did not
true.
age well.
It aged horribly. Yeah.
I don't think...
Yeah.
No one would have predicted him.
No one would have predicted him to be that
Two
bad.
races.
I mean, no one understood from testing results just how horrible that Red Bull is.
Like, you got a little picture from Drive to Survive, but that Red Bull car is something else from last year. It is not
the same car. It is nothing even close to being in the same universe as last year's car. Yeah, it's become something that's quite untamable. But moving on to F1 Fantasy, and just before we actually start diving into that, we do have the F1 swear jar in front of us, the FIA swear jar. We have some coins in there because cheeky Lando did drop a couple of cusses in the cool down room, and then very quickly looked at the camera and realized what he had done.
I feel like we should add some coins in there when they swear on the radio, because I thought they were going to get banned from swearing.
No. So the rule is only on track in the car does not count. Off track counts.
I think we should do it for both.
Well then we're just adding coins perpetually. All
right, lots of coins for Australia, that's for sure.
Fantasy.
Yeah, so fantasy. Where do we start?
Well, I suppose I'll recap what has happened to my team over Australia and China. And if you do want to join our fantasy league, there is a link down below in the description of this episode where you can join our Formula Wombat fantasy team or fantasy league. At the moment, I'm pulling in second out of our group. Not to brag. Where are you, Odin?
You got so lucky.
Where are you, Odin?
He got so lucky with I would have been ahead without... If you didn't get the double Ferrari DQ, I would have been like 10 points ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's still pretty close. What are you... You're only
309 points. And what are you on?
285.
Yeah, okay. So there's a little gap.
What, 24 points?
There's a little gap. However, so recapping Australia, at the time I had Max as my driver, my primary driver, McLaren as my team. Lost a lot of points when Oscar lost his podium position. Max was Mr. Consistent.
You wouldn't have had Oscar.
No, but I had McLaren.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of ground that could have been gained there. But then I almost chose Mercedes as my team, and wow, if I'd had the stones to keep Mercedes as my constructor, I would be doing handsomely right now.
The ideal would have actually been to have both Haas, which whoever picked Haas for Australia would have been insane off Behrman's.
That was the thing. It was tough to stick with Haas after Behrman could not keep it on the track.
I know because of my below 3, doing Hadjar and Alonso, bloody DNF'd. I lost so many points. My negatives were minus 80 points. That's not what I scored, but I scored only 60 or 80.
It was a tough race. It was a tough race. Oof. And then China, I was royally screwed by RB's tactical brain fart. They were sitting in, was it 7th and 8th?
Yeah, so
and then
close to each
decided to double stack in the pits to undercut, or to protect from an undercut. If you're protecting an undercut, you pit one driver. You do not need to pit both your drivers to protect an undercut. You pit one driver and you wait to see if your rival team is going to pit. You don't pit both your drivers. It was ludicrous. They were the only team that did it.
Still salty about it.
I
was more salty for Yuki's sake.
So many points.
Yuki scored during that sprint race. He had pace.
Yes, he had pace in the race as well.
Screwed him. Yeah.
I have RB as my team, and before the Yuki Liam swap, I had Yuki and Isaac as 2 of my drivers. So I was going to score enormous points from RB, and then they just absolutely threw it all away. I was very disappointed.
But you had Ocon as one of your drivers.
I did have Ocon.
And he came
that saved
5th.
me.
Did you have Max still, or did you change?
No, I had Lando. I wish I had Oscar. If I had Oscar, I know you have Oscar.
Because I had Oscar during the race. I was he's going to come back with a vengeance.
You called it. You did call it. Yeah. I was hoping. I mean, that's the problem. I do as a personally, I want Oscar to do better, but I've got Lando in my team. I don't know. Maybe I should just get rid of Lando so I can stop rooting against Oscar. I really don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. For your constructors, it's almost like you have to have McLaren at this point in time.
You have to have McLaren.
It's not the team necessarily going to score the most points because overtakes matter. It just depends race by race.
Well, they will score
over the whole season.
I think they'll score the most points, but they're also
also
least likely to gain huge valuation changes because they're already priced in.
And that's my plan going into Japan, basically.
Yeah.
So, have you explained your drivers?
No, so at the moment, my lineup is Lando with the DRS boost, Isaac, Ocon, Behrman, Stroll, McLaren, and Racing Bulls. It is not the ideal lineup. I had my ideal lineup until Liam and Yuki were swapped, and it's absolutely screwed up my team.
So I had to make big changes because I had to use a chip because my team, I've lost almost 5 mil in value just from 2 races. 2 races, I'm already under 100 mil. It's rigged. That's what it is. I'm so it sets you up terribly for the whole season, basically.
It does. It does. I mean, everyone experiences.
Everyone's on the same page.
What's your line?
I have a wild card. I use my chip, so I can change any of my drivers. So it may change after this video is out. I have Oscar with the time 2s, George Russell, Hadjar, Ocon, Behrman. But Mercedes as my constructors and Racing Bulls. So
honestly, I really like your lineup. I like your lineup more than mine. I think you've got much more to gain in dollar value than I do.
I want McLaren as my constructors. I just can't afford them. I really it's the thing. Mercedes are the second best, but
Mercedes has been so consistent in scoring high points. I think if the trend continues, you are going to make much more money for your team than I will.
And that's the hope. Hope is that George Russell keeps getting podiums and stuff.
George Russell is the type of guy that likes to get podiums. If you're not in on that joke, there was a whole trend, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, where George Russell is the type of guy, insert statement.
He's just Woody to me.
He is Woody. Yeah, he's Toy Story Woody. He's a little bit vanilla.
That's all I see.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
But China as well, though. I also got screwed by Alonso's DNF.
Did I still? I don't think I had Alonso.
I had
think
Alonso.
I got rid of him.
He was in a great position. He was in P11. He was poised for overtakes, and he got royally screwed.
We haven't mentioned in this video. He's having a terrible start to this season.
Yeah.
Aston Martin's, I don't know how Stroll's pulling it out, but
his Stroll is literally just keeping his
he's
eyes
not
on
having
the
a
track.
Stroll moment, which is
not,
surprising.
which is annoying because I was looking forward to the memes coming out.
No, like he's actually consistently doing somewhat decent. Like,
Yes.
He's scoring points. Yeah.
He is. But that's what we have as it stands right now. It'll be interesting to see how we stack up after Suzuka.
Yes.
I think a lot is going to change in Suzuka.
Who do you think will be leading the World Championship? Because I think constructors is pretty straightforward.
I do think
Still
it'll be
think
Lando.
it'll be Lando?
I think it'll be Lando.
Yeah, I think it will be. I do agree as well. If it just depends if Lando has a shocker during qualifiers, I think. But even then, he could still get up to like podium.
Yeah. At this point in time, I do think
it's hard to see.
I do think it's still the McLaren battle.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Lando's going to pull ahead of Oscar still. It's what I'm more interested in seeing. The Ferrari-Mercedes battle at the moment. That is what I'm very actively interested in.
The Ferrari, Mercedes, and the Max Verstappen battle.
Anyway, we wish the best to Yuki. We really hope Yuki can pull it out for his home race. But
I'm believing. You're the one not believing.
First time in the cockpit, man. and the car is a dog. It's not good.
He's a dog. It's wagging, man. It's wagging.
But I think that's enough for this episode. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining us. And we'll come back probably in a week or so to discuss Suzuka as well as the next races coming up in the 2025 F1 Championship. Cheers, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.